This is for you. Here we go, brownies. Here we go. Here we go, brownies. Here we go. Yeah, this for my dogs from the east to the west side. You rockin' brown and orange with me, baby. Let's ride. Represent the land, let them know. Tell them, here we go, brownies. Here we go. Yeah, here we go.
Welcome in, everybody, to a post-game edition of the Here We Go Brownies podcast. I'm Allie Heisel. I'm coming to you live from Detroit, Michigan this time around. And joining with me, as always, in beautiful Boise, Idaho, we've got Dustin. Dustin, your Browns come away today with a 20-17 win, and your Cleveland Browns are now 9-5 on the season. You mentioned it offline. You don't know if your heart can take any more. What's going on with your Cleveland Browns? Talk to me. How you feeling?
I got to tell you, I felt good at halftime. And in that third quarter, I'm like doing the math in my head like every Browns fan does. That's what we do. That's how we live. And I'm like, well, if we lose this game, we got to win these two. And I'm like, damn it, stop doing that. That is the old Browns fan. And then just thank God for our defense. Can I just say that? Thank God that our defense plays the way they do. Joe Flacco didn't have the best game today, obviously, with the 3 picks. But, man, did he come out big time in the fourth quarter. And this is why I think we have a veteran quarterback at the helms in Cleveland, Ohio right now. The fact that he can go out there, have those things happen to him, shake it off. He's not a rookie. He said in his post-game press conference, I've been in this league a long time. Games go your way. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You literally have to compartmentalize things and move on to the next drive. And I think that's really what the Cleveland Browns did in that late third, early fourth quarter. And for the second time, guys, this season, the Cleveland Browns win a football game when they only led for less than a minute. A freaking minute. That is insane to me to even say. But your Cleveland Browns come away victorious, 9-5. I think they have an 87% chance of winning the playoffs now. I've done the math. I think if the Browns win one more game out of 3, they're 99, 97% chance to make the playoffs. So with this win, your Browns definitely notched up in a big way to make that push for the playoffs. But Allie, take it away from Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah, before I do so, I just want to remind you guys, if you're wondering what you should have for dinner, the answer for you is Angelo's Pizza. Head on over to Lakewood to get your hands on the best pizza in all of Northeast Ohio. While you're doing it, be sure to kick back with a glass of Cleveland whiskey. Look, it makes for a great Christmas present. So if you're looking for a last-minute gift, head on over to Cleveland Whiskey. They put their heart and soul into their product, so you can get your hands on some Cleveland whiskey. You can get that in their store or at clevelandwhiskey.com today. Look, this was crazy. Watched the game this time around from a family Christmas party, and it was tough to play it cool, you
got a Lions and a Browns win on the same day.
We were actually at the Lions game last night. We went to the game, which was a lot of fun, and you come away today with an insane Browns game. So I am mentally exhausted. Physically, I'm exhausted. Before we even went on the air tonight, I had to say, David, where are we? Like, what city are we in? I don't know. It has been an absolute whirlwind of travel, of games, of everything. So it's been a lot of fun, but it's exhausting. And your Browns.
Allie, I mean, you got to go to a game in the warmth.
I did. It was I didn't have to bundle up or anything, but it was great. But Dustin, it's crazy to think your Browns are 9-5 on the season, and something just resonated with me. You just said, if the Browns do this, do that, they're going to have a 99.9% chance of making the playoffs, which is crazy because 2 years ago on this podcast, this time of year, we said, look, if you do this, you have a 0.7% chance of making the playoffs. If the Steelers do this, if the Colts do this, you're in. And oddly enough, sometimes those things happened where, they would win those games or another team would kind of help the Browns in a certain way. But the beauty behind this is you are winning in spite of all of the adversity that this Browns team has faced in terms of injuries, just in terms of, the numerous injuries that this team has through. But nonetheless, they're coming away victorious. And I think that does prove your point, Dustin, of why, and the reason this team went in the direction of getting a veteran quarterback to lead them down the stretch is because they still have playoff aspirations. I mean, look
Mhm.
at what Cincinnati's doing. They're still winning. They went with Jake Browning, who was, second on the depth chart. He's looking pretty good. But there was a time there where you're like, well, what's Cincinnati going to do? Does it make sense for them to make a playoff push? We don't know. But for Cleveland, it did. They brought in Joe Flacco, who has been here. He has done this in kind of leading the team in this direction. Do we know if they're going to make a deep playoff push? No, we can't say that for certain. But man, the optimism is there. The hope is there, and everything is out in front of you, and it's entirely attainable.
Well, two big things happened today, Allie. One, you probably didn't even think about this or realize it. I didn't either. But this is the Kevin Stefanski became the first coach to have multiple wins or multiple winning seasons since Marty, God rest his soul, Schottenheimer. I mean, let's just put that into perspective. Kevin Stefanski is the first one to bring two winning seasons to this franchise. I counted today when they put him up on the TV, like 12 starters are on injured reserve. Guess what? That's 20% of your entire football team, Allie, of your starting offense and defense is on injured reserve. I don't want to call this team a team of destiny, but Joe Flacco said today when he did his postgame, when I walked in this locker room, they're tight, real tight. So that says a lot to Stefanski's leadership and getting them going in the right direction. Schwarzer's leadership, all those Callahan, all those coaches are all dialed in with these players and have them believing in something. And that's the kind of scary team you don't want to play in the playoffs, right? A team that's so like, hey, you know what? What are you going to hit us with now? You've hit us with everything. What else can you hit us with, right? Like we lose our star running back, our quarterback goes out. I mean, we lose our right tack. I mean, like all these things that most teams would be like, okay,
15 tackles on the defensive line, or on the offensive line. It is insane. One thing I do want to shout out is David's mom got me these really cool Browns earrings at the Christmas party. So I had and I think this may be the good luck.
Is that the new dogs? Is that the new dogs?
Oh, yeah, we got the dogs here, and then on the other side we've got the helmet. So
they're like a little mismatch. I like it.
Yeah. So that's a lot of fun. But no, this is crazy. I can't believe we're doing this show, and I cannot believe that yet again we're having a podcast saying Dustin Hopkins goes and wins you the game. Is this? Can I ask you something without being crazy? And I know what I'm about to say sounds insane, but I don't know that it is. Is the trade for Dustin Hopkins like the best trade in the history of the Browns? Like,
no.
Is it on the list?
No, because I think the Cooper trade for a 7th or 6th round draft pick is pretty good.
It's up there. It's on the list, right?
Right. And the only reason I say that is because we've had him for multiple years, right? We've had Cooper for multiple years. But I will tell you this. I will say this. I think he's the best kicker in the league, and that's not a homer answer. I think he's been the most consistent. He's going to make a Pro Bowl more than likely, but Dustin Hopkins, a guy that wasn't even on this roster, this 53-man roster, a couple weeks before the season, is the best kicker in the National Football League. I mean, what he's doing is just crazy, right? Like, and I look back to, when we had, I'm trying to think of the kicker, Matt Stover on, and he said, hey, he's from Texas. The wind blows like all the time. I think he'll be okay. And I think kickers know kickers, and they kind of know like who's going to be okay and who's not. And I think that's really interesting that Matt Stover months ago had the foresight to say, yeah, he kicks in the wind. He's going to be fine. He just needs to get acclimated. I'm like, here we are months later, and look how consistent he's been. And by the way, Stefanski brings this up literally in the press conference, when you can choose where you want the ball in the fourth quarter, which way you want to be going when you make that decision. He literally went over to Hopkins and said, okay, you see what's happening out here in the elements today. Where do you want to go? And he made that choice of going that way in the fourth quarter. And boy, did that end up being the right choice for the Browns and Dustin Hopkins.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me. I mean, look, this is the Cleveland Browns team that spent pretty high draft capital on a kicker a year ago in Cade York. I mean, what was he, a 4th round draft pick? That is a pretty valuable draft asset that they spent on a kicker.
Yeah.
And I think that for that first week when he goes into Carolina for the game winner, Dustin, I know you said it on this podcast, your Cleveland Browns have a kicker. And that wasn't the case. We thought it was, and then it wasn't the case. And then we've brought in a couple different people in years prior, and we said the same thing, like, oh, it's going well until it wasn't. Consistently over the course of this season, Dustin Hopkins has been reliable. And we said from the time that they made that trade, we do not need him to go out and make a 65-yard field goal. We don't need that. But we need you to, make the kicks within reason and do it consistently and accurately. And he's been that. So, George, I agree with you entirely. He says kicker saved our season. Think about the games, Dustin, that are just that are just on the cusp there. If we did not have Dustin Hopkins, that this season would be entirely different. Maybe you're not the 9-5 Browns, you're the 5-9 Browns. I mean, it's entirely possible to think of a world that way where, those small factors, those small elements in football games. And I know a couple of years ago we said, man, if a couple plays just went this way or that way, you're looking at a playoff team in the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
And here we're saying, look, we finally capitalized on those very small details, those very small things. And here we are.
Well, and for once, we control our own destiny.
Correct.
For the first time in a long time. You go out and win another game, you're probably making the playoffs, period, right? Like, you can control your own destiny down the stretch. You win 2, you're even setting prettier, right? Like, you're going up probably in the seedings. But to your point, this team, the way they play and the way they just have each other's back, a good friend of the program, D'Anthony Bell, who we've had on a couple of times, I just about had a cardiac arrest when the ball falls into the Bears guy's hands. He then kicks it for whatever reason into D'Anthony Bell's hands. And then now, correct me if I'm wrong, Allie, D'Anthony Bell could have just sat right there in the end zone and it would have been a touchback. I believe that would have been the case. But I think he was probably pretty excited in that moment. He ran out and then just sat on the field. But I got to tell you, like, that turn of events probably aged me about 8 to 10 years just in that 5 seconds, because I was like, okay, we're good.
It's like, I get my hair done because I know that I have about like 2/3 of my head is now gray hairs from this game alone. Doing it at a family Christmas party. So that was I ended up on the floor. I was on the floor of David's brother's house during that time. So that's what it's like watching a football game with Allie Heisling. You end up on the floor. We would have talked about our friends over at K&D, whether it is sophisticated suburban living, luxury downtown digs, or senior housing. K&D, the largest property management company in Northeast Ohio. You've got the perfect home for everyone. Visit KND.com to shop now. That is the letter K, the word and the letter D.com. While we're at it, if you don't have Stadium Mustard in your kitchen this season, you're doing it wrong. It's the iconic brand, the iconic taste. It's beloved from ballparks to backyards and everywhere in between. It is loved by millions, so be sure to head on over to stadiummustard.com to shop now. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that Hail Mary from Justin Fields, where he's got a clear shot to the end zone. And look, I know Justin Fields, he's got a lot of talent. As an Ohio State fan, I know the kind of player that he is. He scares me a little bit. But I thought, okay, if he's got to throw the ball, coming off of an injury a few weeks ago, that's probably in a better situation for the Browns. He's not incredibly accurate, but he is very athletic. I'd rather him try to throw the ball into tight windows rather than run the ball and kind of exploit the Cleveland Browns. So when he made that throw, I thought, when he released it, I thought immediately it was out of the end zone. Like, he overshot the end zone. That ended up not being the case. It was completely catchable. For whatever reason, he kicks the ball into D'Anthony Bell's arms. Talk to me, Dustin. How were you feeling during that time? Because that was insane.
Well, so I'm in a room of about 30 to 40 Browns backers, right? And we all sat there and said, and we even said this, and it's very true. Hey, that field goal was great, but there's 37 seconds left on the clock, or whatever the amount of time was left on the clock, right? So yeah, I was like, it was almost like a I don't know, like I use the analogy, like you've been driving white knuckle in a snowstorm for like 3 hours, and then you get to stop and you're like, okay, I'm alive. We're good. Like, I made it through the snowstorm. That's kind of how I felt watching this game. I felt good. And then I was down and up and down. And like, it was just, these games are physically exhausting, mentally and physically. They're going longer. I think this one went 3.5 hours today. Again, these games are going long. I think there's a lot of penalties, booth reviews, all that crap that we absolutely don't love. But it was interesting today, Allie, the way this game was played. I thought it was a pretty clean game as far as penalties. The ones they did call were interesting. And it was interesting that Roger Goodell was in presence today in Cleveland to watch the game. I thought that was interesting that he was in town. But Allie, this defense we talked about depth on both sides of the ball. And my God, is it not more important more now than ever that the Browns have enough depth on this football team to get them to the next game? And we saw that today. On the defensive side of the ball, on the line when guys were having to go out, the D'Anthony Bells of the world that had to step up and play big today, and some of these other guys because folks like Denzel Ward were on a pitch count today, out there. Like I feel like this team is just so tight. And I think they don't think they're ever out of it. I don't think this team ever thinks they're really out of a football game. And I think ever since that Ravens game where they were down by 14 with 8-9 minutes left, I think this team really feels like nobody's going to take us out unless we take ourselves out, right? Like we're going to be in this till the end. And that defense really tightened up at the end of the game and really made it very difficult for Justin Fields at the end of that game to not be able to. And Larry made a comment here. It was incredibly loud in Cleveland today. It was deafening in the stadium. And of course, Stefanski made a comment about that. He goes, look, we don't win as a team. We win as a city. And he said that today. And he said, and I really appreciate that. He goes, if the fans aren't as loud as they are, we don't make it difficult for Justin Fields basically today, right? Like if they're not that loud and bringing the chaos in that stadium, the Browns are 7-1 now at home. And they always say, if you can win all your games at home and go 500 on the road, you're a playoff team. The Cleveland Browns are doing that right now, right? They're winning most of all their games at home and going 500 on the road, and they're in that playoff push. I mean, they're doing what good teams do, right?
Yeah.
We're a good team. We're not great, but we're a really good football team.
So is it appropriate to say that this is kind of like the second version of the Cardiac Kids? I mean, we talked about how I need to go get my hair done because I have 2/3 of my head is gray hairs after this game alone. I mean, get this from Jake Trotter. The Browns now have 5 wins off of a game-winning score in the final 2 minutes of regulation. That's 5 on the season. And by the way, that's a franchise record. So let me read that one more time. The Browns now have 5 wins off of a game-winning score in the final 2 minutes of regulation. You know what that does to a person?
Well, that's why. I mean, you and I didn't watch the Cardiac Kids, right? I started watching as a little kid more of the Bernie Kosar era, but everybody from what I heard, the Brian Sipe Cardiac Kid days was literally like that's how it was like watching a football game, sitting there going, "Okay, they're going to win it. Okay, yeah, they're going to win it, but it's going to wear." Yeah,
they're going to win it, but you as a fan are really going to go through every emotion that you've ever felt.
Well, and I think this is also Joe Flacco's first back-to-back 300 plus. Dating back to the Jets. I mean, the fact that we have a quarterback putting up 300 plus passing yards in a game.
Let me stop you before you even finish that because it gets crazier. Joe Flacco had 212 passing yards in the fourth quarter. That is the most by any Browns quarterback in any quarter over the last 45 seasons.
What?
Yep. Yeah, that's correct. Joe Flacco had 212 passing yards in the fourth quarter. That is the most by any Browns quarterback in any quarter of the last 45 seasons.
So that goes back to Brian Sipe. I mean, that has to go back to Brian Sipe or even before Brian Sipe.
45 years. 45 seasons.
That's you're going back to the 1978. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like that's right. Brian Sipe years. I mean, we're setting some crazy records here. And Allie, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the Bears have the number 2 ranked defense. Am I correct? So, I mean, this game kind of looked like, you know what I mean? Like it kind of looked like that kind of puncher, like kind of punchy back and forth kind of thing too. I kind of felt this game was a game of wills net down the stretch because a credit to the Bears today. They were confusing us on offense. They weren't letting us run the ball. I mean, they actually came in with a really good game plan. And yes, they were on the outside. Like they were playing the Browns. These teams have to lose for us to win to get in the playoffs. But this Bears team has been scrappy. You and David know that this is a team that, dismantled the Lions last week. So this is not a team that just lays down. You know what I mean? This is not a football team that's just going to lay down.
We do know that. I mean, coming into this game, he even said, like, man, I hope the Browns just absolutely like crush. For multiple reasons, obviously,
you're like, that's not going to be the case today, actually.
No, but we are going to hand him a loss. So that was, it was just crazy, and it's really hard. It's really hard to get on and talk about it and give it the credit that it deserves, because this is a team that is unlike any that I've ever seen before. And I'm not, being hyperbolic here and saying that. I think that we all know and agree that this is a team that has overcome some of the most difficult situations that any team has to overcome. Just given, you guys know the injuries. I don't have to go down the list, but to overcome that, Dustin, to your point, speaks on the depth of this team and what a great teams have. They have depth. I mean, if you look at some of these young teams, or good teams. I mean, let's use the Houston Texans as an example. While they won today, and that was great, you look at the depth on that roster. Man, it's not very deep. They've got some good talent right now. They've got some good talent, first string. But once you get beyond that, it can get a little bit iffy. Now, in the next couple of years, while they can build in the draft, free agency, trade, they can have a pretty good team. But right here, right now, that is a little suspect for them. But when you look at this Browns team, and you can go down the depth chart and you say, yeah, I know who this player is. I've seen him do this before. You feel okay about him stepping into the next role. And that's why we've had to say next man up is because not only is it really and literally the next man up, but I think as fans, we believe in them. And I said on the podcast last week, next man up, I fully expect that player to be ready to go. Now, am I saying that I expect, I don't even know, Jerron Christian to step up and be Jed Wills or Joe Thomas? Well, no, because he's not. But I still step in and play disciplined football, do his job and do his assignment. And I think it's been really difficult as fans, but we've all kind of adjusted to that and understanding that this is a good football team. Their depth speaks to that, I think.
Well, and to your point, you brought up the Texans as a current. The Texans are no different than the Cleveland Browns were a couple of years with Baker Mayfield as kind of that rookie quarterback and had some good pieces around them, and they were winning football games, but there was not that depth, right? And when who went down, we're like, that's not good. Like, there's nobody behind him, right? Like, so that team that we were a few years ago that could make it to the playoffs, were they going to make a deep run and get past Patrick Mahomes? No, right? Or someone like that. But yeah, that's the kind of team that, the Browns were a few years ago when they started building the assets that they now have on the field. But I got to tell you, this team is interesting to me. Like, I can't figure this team out. And the fact, like, they lose 2 and now they've won 2 in a row, and now they're going to have a tough one against Houston. They come home to the Jets, and then they'll have to go to Cincinnati. But, I think I saw today now the Jets have been eliminated from the playoffs. So I don't know what the Jets will really be playing for in that game. Probably pride. And if they put Aaron Rodgers in there, they're just absolutely insane, because that's your franchise quarterback. I'll be like, hey, Aaron, don't go in this game. Myles Garrett has different ideas for you. So yeah, just don't do it. But yeah, Ali, this team is fun to watch, and even though it's a heart attack waiting to happen every time we watch this game, I think they believe in them, and I think the fans really. What's funny is this team, and we all know this. Clevelanders are blue collar, right? They're these blue collar. Let me come help my neighbor kind of city, right? That's what Cleveland stands for. And I feel like this Cleveland Browns team is so blue collar. Does that make sense? Like, hey, my boy went down here. You're going to come help us win this, right? I just feel like this team has such a blue collar feel to it. Like someone said, like Joe Flacco with his like scruffy beard out there at 38, slinging the ball around. That's what that's what this city loves. And like the Joe Flacco jerseys are going off the shelf. I'm not shocked by that, because this team kind of epitomizes right now what the city is, right? This is a city that roots for the underdog, right? Like, we are the ultimate underdog. And Joe Flacco sitting on a couch for 10 months, coming in and now slinging the ball. It's like, yeah, you go, right? Like, you're out there doing something that no other person. I mean, think about this. How many teams have lost quarterbacks this year, Alec? Think about it. How many?
I went through. It's over. If the other night, this is ridiculous. Can't believe I'm saying this on the podcast. I couldn't sleep. So
I'm picturing Allie on her phone like at 2 a.m.
I couldn't sleep. So
by the way, just in case you guys don't know and you're joining the podcast for the first time ever, Allie doesn't watch crime podcasts. She doesn't do anything. She literally consumes football knowledge 24/7 in her spare time. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's all I consume. Okay. That in my soap opera that I watch.
That's true. Okay.
Can't believe I'm saying this on the podcast tonight, but I couldn't sleep the other night. And the only thing to like get my brain to shut off was to think about football, which is weird. But I was going through every team in the league, and I thought to myself, okay, has the starting quarterback that started the season, has he been hurt? Has he been put on IR? Is he out for the season? It was over. I think it was like 60% of the league has either had a quarterback that has sat at any point this season
for an injury.
Due to an injury. Now, not consistently. I don't like. I think it's like 9 on the season so far that are out for the season at this point. But there are several that were out for a game or two due to injury. So, to your point, at this point, vast majority of the teams have been out a starting quarterback at some point during the season.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, and I guess what for me that's crazy is why a team wouldn't want a Joe Flacco. And I'm just saying, thank God we have him. But I'm just thinking because of just the experience alone, right? Like, and I use like the Jacoby Brissett effect. He's kind of like the Jacoby, Brissett guy, right? He's been in a lot of games, but he's also won at the highest level. So nothing's going to phase him from the quarterback position. So, yeah, I mean, it was just, I'm just shocked he was on the couch and available because I got to be honest, full disclosure, like when I posted that and I saw that someone's like, Joe Flacco's on a plane to Cleveland. I'm like, Joe Flacco is not flying from Delaware to Cleveland unless he has a purpose. Like, I'm like, that guy is talking to the Cleveland Browns. He is not spending his off season in Cleveland to talk about, hey, what's happening in Cleveland. And I was like, wow, you're right. No, why has nobody signed him? And I think of like, and this was my, I think we all as Cleveland fans were kind of pissed off when we were like, why didn't the Browns go after Jacoby Brissett? Why didn't we go after one of these guys as a backup quarterback? And then when Deshaun got hurt, we were like doubly mad, right? Like, damn it. Now, like, see, this is why you go out and get a Jacoby Brissett. And then like, I'm like, well, why is Joe Flacco even available? I was thinking in my mind, like, I knew that he didn't retire, but he wasn't on a team. And I was like, well, this is interesting to me. Like, this could work. This experiment could work. I don't know. But
the New York Jets didn't call him once Aaron Rodgers went down. I'll never know because, to be honest with you, and I've heard this on several podcasts. And
I never thought about that. That's
playoff team. They are a playoff team if he's available for them or if they make the phone call. Just like we would be. Probably having a similar conversation if Jacoby Brissett was not on an active roster at the time that Deshaun went down. You say you just give him a call now. Comes back, he knows the system. I mean, I think the New York Jets are probably within the realms of contention with somebody.
Sure.
With so I don't know. I think it's crazy. I mean, it is mind-boggling to me. And I just want to go back to that stat that I read earlier. Like, I just cannot comprehend this. Joe Flacco had 212 passing yards in the fourth quarter. That's 212. That's insane. That is the most by any Browns quarterback in any quarter over the last 45 seasons.
Yeah. And by the way, we've kind of turned, Larry's watching, so I'm going to give him a little bit of a hard time now. Larry's now more believing in the Italian quarterbacks. He's now leaning more to the quarterbacks in the are Italian. So, Allie, with that, why don't you give us a little word about Lorello Vineyards?
You know what? Lorello Vineyards, whether you are kicking back after a Browns win or you need a glass of wine after a Browns loss, you need to head on over to the Grand River Valley of Geneva, Ohio. You can get their old world inspired blends. They've got Northeast Ohio grown grapes in most of their wines. So you need to be sure to head on over to Lorello Vineyards. You can head on over to their website, lorellovineyards.com. And by the way, you need a last minute gift for somebody, Christmas present, New Year's present, you head on over to Larry's site in Geneva, Lorello Vineyards. They got you covered. They've got you covered.
Well, you get the Here We Go Brownies wine. A few dollars goes to the Greater Cleveland Food Bank, who we love supporting. And I don't know if you saw it, Allie. There was a mysterious Santa Claus wearing sunglasses at the Lorello Vineyards with a Here We Go Brownies bottle in his hand. But I think if you watch it a couple times, you can figure out who Santa was.
We also want to tell you about what we've got going on in March. Here's a quick listen from our friends over at Seaside.
There, Browns fans, pack your bags for the ultimate dog pound at sea party on the amazing Independence of the Seas in March of 2024 as we embark on a 5-day all-inclusive Caribbean cruise. Spend time with your favorite Browns alumni like Josh Cribbs, Eric Metcalf, Webster Slaughter, and many more. Presented by Seaside Events. Cabins are selling fast, so book yours now. Visit BrownsFanCruise.com or call 216-284-6472 today.
Sounds pretty fun if you ask me. Who doesn't love kicking back?
I know Allie's going to love it because it's going to be warm. It's going to be warm. It's going to be
Tell
great.
ya, Allie's going to love that. All right, let's get into Game Balls. This is brought to you by our friends over at
Browns
Circle K.
fans, get ready for a sizzling sensation that's about to heat up your taste buds. Circle K is bringing you a hot deal this football season. Introducing Circle K's Hot Chicken Wings. And the best part, the price is as hot as the wings themselves. Pick up 6 wings for just $5.99 at your local Circle K today. So what are you waiting for? Gather your friends, your family, and anyone else who craves the ultimate wing experience. Circle K, where every deal is hotter than ever before. Here we go, brownies. Only at Circle K.
All right, time to get into Game Balls, and I'm starting this time. I am going to start on the offensive side, and I'm going to go with the obvious one here, and that's Joe Flacco. While the box score does not represent the game that he had, I think that he gets my obvious game ball. He went 28 for 44, 374. Yes, he did have 3 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. He sacked 4 times on the day. I know reading that box score to you or that his stat line isn't like the sexiest thing in the world, but again, the ability to step up and do what he did and deliver, the opportunity for the Browns to hit a game winner. I don't think it's. I don't want to say it's not getting enough credit because it is, but like I just keep going back to that stat line. In 45 years, he's the most to score or the most to have that many yards in a quarter in 45 years by any quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. I think that's remarkable. And what he's doing for this team is it's historic for fans. You know, we've never been able to, at this point in the season where you've gone through so much injury, to sit back and say, we're putting our trust in the fourth starter for this team. But by the way, it's Joe Flacco, so you can just comfortably watch this without so much crippling anxiety. And what he's doing out there is still at an elite level.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you in that situation, but I'm going to go in a different direction.
Please do.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Chief is having his career year in Cleveland. The last 2 games for David Njoku have been phenomenal. He made some big-time plays today. He literally, 3rd and 15, makes a huge play for the Cleveland Browns to get them to that first down and keep that drive alive. And in that fourth quarter was such a big, integral part of the Browns winning this football game. But David Njoku, he gives it 180% every game. And man, I got to tell you, it scares me, but I love when he goes up in the air and tries to hurdle a guy to get 4 more yards. That is a team player. So my game ball today goes to David Njoku, who literally balled out today for this Cleveland Browns for the 2nd week in a row and is having a Pro Bowl career year in Cleveland.
I agree with that entirely. He had 10. He was targeted 14 times, came down with 10 of them for 104 and 1 touchdown. His longest on the day was 34 yards. And I agree with that. Look, when he gets the ball, we were talking about this at the family Christmas party. You know, one thing about him, the physique of David Njoku, he's cut, he's athletic, but he's slow. And I think as fans, we recognize that. But that's okay because he's able to lower his shoulder and just bully you once he does get the ball. Some issues with drops early in the season and late a couple of weeks ago, but he's kind of corrected that. He's the safety net for Joe Flacco. He is most reliable, and I think that's huge for somebody, your 4th starter of the year, to come in at quarterback and be able to have that guy. And that's David Njoku, and he's playing absolutely great football. Turn it over to you, defensive game ball. What are you doing?
Trying to get this guy on the show. He'll hopefully be on the show soon. But my goodness, Greg Newsome playing another great football game today, nearly picking off the ball a couple times in this game. If one of those goes pick 6 or a couple of those go the opposite way, this is a completely different game today, and it's probably closer to a shutout. This team, Greg has been playing phenomenal football this year. He has, I think, finally found his way with this defense. I think Jim has made him feel really good in this defense and comfortable. But man, Greg Newsome was all over the place today for that Cleveland Browns defense.
Yeah, we've had some weeks where we've been critical of Greg on this podcast, and some of it, deserved. But he's back into his role, right? You get Denzel Ward back while on a snap count. And you've got MJ Emerson that's playing really good football. Greg is doing what he does best, as a slot corner. So he's playing some pretty good football. I'd like to see him get back to the level that he was playing, but I agree he was all over the field today, doing what he does best. And I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction. And when I first got on the pod tonight, I thought, I'm going Myles Garrett. It's Myles Garrett. Who else would it be? This is his team. Like, this is crazy. But I'm actually going to go with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah.
Yeah, JOK today. Yeah.
Guy, talk about a career year. Pro Bowl year, it's JOK. I mean, he had 6 tackles on the day. 6 of them were solo. He had 1 sack and 2 tackles for loss, 2 passes defense. So not only is he getting after the quarterback, but he's dropping back in coverage. He's able to get after the quarterback. He had 1 QB hit in addition to the sack. I mean, he's just playing really, really good football. Yeah. And it's a testament, too, when you look at this defensive line that has been absolutely just stung by injuries. Okoronkwo wasn't out there. And we've said at the start of the show, Dustin, I mean, this season, when your defensive line is playing good football and able to absorb the run in the manner that they are, it allows your linebackers to do what they need to do, which is read and react. Last year, they weren't able to do that. This year, they are. And even though that you do have some of that depth depleted, essentially, on your defensive line this season, these linebackers are still able to do what they need to do. We saw Sione Takitaki drop back in coverage. Thankfully, that pass was dropped because that was for a huge gain for the Chicago Bears. But ultimately, I think the linebackers are still playing well, even though the defensive line is a little bit more depleted than we were a few weeks ago. And then, of course, we've got a special teams game ball to give away. I think we know who that goes to, right?
Yeah, Dustin's going to pick Dustin. I'm sorry. Dustin Hopkins consistently today just, kept, I mean, and here's the thing, a turnover was created on special. I mean, the Bears had a turnover, that they lost. They muffed the kick, right? And so I'm going to give a credit to the special teams. I think they get an extra little asterisk of today. Sloppy conditions, wet, and the fact that they played a very clean game on special teams today, I think that needs to be recognized because, that's when stuff happens, when the ball's wet, it's raining. But yeah, for Dustin Hopkins to come in, cool, calm, collective, put it through the uprights and say, hey, we're going to go out of here with a win today.
I agree. I don't even know where else you go with this one. Like I said, this is 5th game of the year. I mean, this is 5 in total wins off of a game-winning score in the final 2 minutes. That's insane. So shout out to Dustin Hopkins and doing what he's doing because we just named the three or four game balls that were given away. Dustin are all Pro Bowl level type players. They're having career years. So shout out to them. Also, Larry, don't forget that tonight's game is huge for us. Go Jags. Weird to be saying that after last week. The Jags in this one. But yeah, George, you're right. We absolutely want to give a shout out to Corey Bojorquez, who's having a career year as well.
Yes.
Great game. And his ability to flip the field. Look, I know that whenever you trot out there for a punt, nobody's exactly thrilled. But the way that Corey Bojorquez is able to absolutely just flip the field instantaneously is huge for this team. Dustin, why don't you tell our friends about the Barley House?
Well, guys, if you were at the Barley House today, you probably had a lot of fun. It's a great place to hang out on West 6 before any Browns game, home or away, guys. But for the next home game, guys, come join me. I will actually be in Cleveland for the meet and greet with Joe Thomas. It'll be from 3 to 4. And then, by the way, 4 to 5, guess what he's going to be doing, guys? You can walk in there and have Joe Thomas serve you drinks. I mean, what couldn't be better? A Hall of Famer serving you drinks before a Browns game. Go to the Barley House. Check him out. Great place to be before any kind of game. Or if the game is away, like it will be next week in Houston, go down and check out the Barley House and have a great time there. Great food, great people, great fun.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I like saving money. So that's why I do all of my furniture shopping over at the Cleveland Furniture Company. Whether you're looking for maybe a new recliner or a new couch to watch your Cleveland Browns, you need to head on over to the Cleveland Furniture Company where they buy in bulk direct from the factory so they can save you money. This next segment is brought to you from the couch.
From the Couch is brought to you by the Cleveland Furniture Company.
All right, let's go through some stats here. And I know that we kind of did during our game balls, but Joe Flacco, 28 for 44, 374, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So while that stat line doesn't look the prettiest, it's still remarkable that, we gave a game ball to him and, it's still just insane that he was able to do what he did in this game. I think he was one of the clear winners of today's game. The Browns can't run the ball effectively right now, and we'll talk about that maybe a little bit more this week on our podcast.
On Tuesday, we'll talk about that.
On Wednesday, because I will be traveling. Browns just cannot run the ball in the way that they could for several reasons. One, you don't have Nick Chubb. Period, point blank. Two, do you know how much movement we've had on this offensive line this season? So, that's a
bigger part of it. I mean, I'm just saying Nick Chubb is amazing, but when you have that kind of inconsistency on the offensive line and you can't open holes for your running back, that's a big deal.
Look, I've said a couple of times, I don't love the way that they're using Jerome Ford in the wide zone game. I don't think it's his best attribute.
Right.
But nonetheless, they're able to move the ball a little bit. I mean, as a team, they carried it 18 times for 29 yards, averaging 1.6 a pop. That's not good. That's not beautiful. So we're not going to really go through the individual ball carriers for the rushers, but on the receiving side, total flip. They can throw the ball. Joe Flacco can get the balls in the hands of the receivers. Amari Cooper, 4 for 109, 1 touchdown. His longest on the day was 51 yards. He was targeted 8 times, came down with 4 of them. David Njoku targeted 14 times, came down with 10 of them for 104, 1 touchdown. Marquise Goodwin, how about that? One target, 1 reception, 57 yards. That was a huge play, huge momentum shift in this game. Cedric Tillman, 4 receptions for 52. We're starting to see his pass catches increase.
I love that they're trusting Tillman more and have confidence in him. I think this is somebody to watch out for. I'm just going to put it here.
Okay.
I mean, he has got the hands, and like I'm telling you, Tillman could be a big difference down the stretch for us as we head into the playoffs.
Yeah, not going. Elijah Moore 2 for 17, Kareem Hunt 1 for 12. So I think this was a really good day in terms of pass catching. I think that we still need to have a discussion on the receivers and the receiver play. I don't think it's up to the standard that it should be, although that we just rattled off some crazy stats and some really talented players. I think it could be better. So we'll maybe talk about that on Tuesday. If we turn it over to the defensive side, JOK, as I mentioned, 6 total tackles on the day, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, 2 passes defense, 1 quarterback hit. Dalvin Tomlinson also had a really big day, 6 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss. And then MJ Emerson, also really, really good day for him. He had 4 solo tackles, 6 total. Sione Takitaki. I mean, defensively, Dustin, you mentioned it off the top. They set the tone. This is the defense's team, essentially. Like, this is who the Cleveland Browns are right now. And I just did not expect for that to be the case going into the later part of this season. Last year we had all this talent on the defensive side of the ball. We had Joe Woods as your defensive play caller. We said, look, this should be a top 5 defense in the league, and it wasn't. And we were surprised, given the Deshaun Watson suspension, that the offense was functioning as efficiently as it was with Jacoby Brissett. This year, I think kind of the roles have reversed a little bit, that we are surprised that the defense is operating at such a high and elite level that the offense is not quite where it should be, but obviously more injuries on that front. But
more quarterbacks. Yeah.
Like I won't even get into that. And so the defense has been the story of this Cleveland Browns.
Well, and here's the truth: is the Browns hopefully make a playoff push here. Defenses travel, right, on the road. I mean, defenses travel. We know that, right? So keep that in mind, fans. That the defense travels. That's what's supposed to be the strength. If you're a playoff team and you have to travel on the road, is your defense, and hopefully your offense scores enough points that your defense wins you the game. Because I think the Cleveland Browns are going to have to rely on that if they do have to travel on the road for the playoffs. They're going to have to rely on that defense to be kind of their brand, as I would say, on the road if they have to do that. Now, there are some scenarios out there, to your point, if somehow the Ravens lose 2-4 and the Browns go on a run here, which this would be the wildest thing with the Browns having the 1 seed, I might do somersaults. Might break a toe doing a somersault, but if the Browns end up, But I'm just saying, it is crazy to think there's a lot of football left, and I think there's going to be a lot of shuffling from the top of the deck to the middle of the deck on this playoff. there are a lot of teams still in it, right? We know that. So
Mhm.
we need to see how this team is going to play on the road. I'm assuming the Texans might be favored next week, especially if CJ Stroud, if he's back. But again, you have to try to be competitive and win those games, right? That's part of what you have to do. So I don't know. You can do a somersault. No, I tried to race your grandson, and we know how that turned out. I had to get Dr. David Ullery to say, "Hey, do I need surgery?" No, we don't want that. We don't want any more stuff till I can actually.
Real quick. George, when was the last time we had two wide receivers with 100 plus receiving yards? The Browns had two. I mean, this is crazy. 100 plus receivers on the day. Amari Cooper for 109, David Njoku 104 in the same game for the first time since 2013. George, and that was with Josh Gordon and Jordan Cameron. So
There it is.
dates to 2013, almost 10 years ago, which is crazy.
Well, and I think that is also a 10-6 Browns team that didn't make the playoffs. I think that year. So that was a really good football team.
I think maybe you might be right about that.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look, but yeah, I mean they're doing some great things, and it's a lot of fun to talk about that. It's so much easier to do a podcast about the Cleveland Browns when they're winning. It's a lot more
Allie,
fun.
let's just put it this way. You and I both know this, and I'm not going to ever use a cuss word on a podcast if I can't. But the fact that Joe Flacco is out there, winning games for us, and you and I tried to come on a podcast last year after the meltdown of the Jets game, Jets meltdown game, and I was like, I was so sick.
You know what we said? Do you know what we said on that podcast? I remember what we said. We said, "Oh my God. Can you believe that Joe Flacco just beat the Browns the way he did?"
You know what? Life's like a full circle, Allie. It just comes full circle.
Yep.
And by the way, that was funny when they threw that stat up there today. They're like, "Hey, it's the first time that Joe Flacco's had back-to-back 300 passing games back to when he played with the Jets and the Browns in week 2 and 3." I'm like, "Yeah, I remember that very vividly." Yeah, so
yeah. Going around the league, some crazy games this week, Dustin, that maybe we didn't see coming, such as the Bills absolutely just decimating the Cowboys. 31 to 10. The Saints beating the Giants 24-6. Colts beating the Steelers, which is great, 30-13. Did you catch any of that Vikings Bengals game?
Yeah, I was annoyed with it, but yeah, I did.
Did you see? I mean, it's crazy. The throw from Nick Mullins. It was like he was thrown away as he was getting sacked, and the defensive lineman came down with it as an interception. That was one of the craziest.
And then he rumbled like a big old man. Yeah.
That was something.
Or how about the 63 points put up by the Las Vegas Raiders? I mean,
that was crazy. Didn't see that one.
What's that turned in getting your GM fired and your head coach immediately the next day? So
honestly, about time though. I'm surprised it took the
by the way, the Niners took care of business today, 28-16. Broncos, obviously, after what happened to them, they won to, a lot of these things just, it's interesting where the NFL is going. Honestly, obviously,
last week over the Seahawks. You are correct that the Niners did take care of business, 45-29 over the Cardinals. Chiefs beat the Patriots 27-17. The Dolphins decimated the Jets 30-0. Bucks over the Packers 34-20. Texans come back and win 19-16. Tennessee Titans in overtime. The Rams beat the Commanders 28-20. And as we know, the Bills beat the Cowboys 31-10. So some things that maybe we did not see coming this week in the NFL happened.
Yeah, and obviously we're all big Jags fans tonight because if the Ravens lose and we beat the Jags, that's how those wonderful tiebreakers work out for us. Really, we need the Ravens to win 2 of 4 down the stretch for the Browns to realistically have a chance at the division. So if the Jags win tonight, we're in a better place. But again, we got to win the games in front of us over the next 3 weeks. But man, I got to tell you, this would have been a much different discussion going into Houston if the Browns lost today. I think that's a must win, probably in Houston, because of the tiebreakers. because of the tiebreakers, that Houston game would have been a must-win because there wouldn't be very many outs at that point if you don't win that game. But now we have a little bit of breathing room with 3 weeks left in the season. And of course, guys, we will be on next Tuesday. So just in a few more days, we're going to go on Tuesday because of all the travel and everyone with the holidays. We're going to come on Tuesday night. We're going to come on at our normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, but not Wednesday.
Yeah, it's been absolutely crazy in terms of travel. And again, I am in another hotel room, so I do apologize if the audio is not what it normally is. We're in Detroit,
You
Michigan.
sound good. Actually, you sound good.
Here in a couple of days, I go to New York City. That's gonna be crazy. And then home in Ohio for the holidays. So it's been busy, but you know what? That's a good thing, and it's even better because the Browns come away with a win today. Dustin, you mentioned it. We just need to like appreciate what this team is doing. I know that we're all giving them credit, but I think we should give them a little bit more. And to be able to sit here and do a show in the way that we are and go about our victory Mondays and victory weeks, and going into these games with kind of like little expectations, but like high hopes, if you will. It's exhausting. It really is, but it's a lot of fun to watch right now.
I will tell you this. If this Browns team goes to the playoffs, I think, and this is crazy what I'm about to say, and people are going to think I'm crazy.
Just let it
But
rip.
I think the Browns should build some kind of statue outside the stadium that's called like the replacements or something to that effect of the players that actually had to come together.
What you were going to say, you said statue, and I about spit out my drink live on the air.
Yeah, but I'm talking like of just, and it doesn't have to be any particular players, but I'm talking like a group of people that are just called the replacements for the season of 2023, that these guys were the ones that came in and helped this team win this playoff push. Like without the other players that aren't starters, we are not 9-5, period. We're not. We're not a 9-5 team. And I think a lot of credit needs to go to these players that have had to step up into roles and act like they are the starter. There needs to go a lot of credit to these guys out there, like the DeAnthony Bells, those guys that were thrust into roles. They're all professional athletes, but to go in there and play at the level they've played at blows my mind. I mean, because typically you just see a drop off. You just see a drop off on defense or offense. And the fact that these guys have went in there, and that's credit to every single one of those quarterbacks too. All of them. PJ Walker, DTR. I mean, they've all had to come in and next man up. Oh, or maybe that's what the statue says. Next man up. It's a statue just called Next Man Up. I like that. Let's do that. Next man up. 2023 season. That's what it was all about.
Dustin, real quick before we wrap up, why don't you tell our listeners what we've got going on in March?
Guys, get on the cruise with us. March 11th, we're going to take out of Miami. We're going to go to Jamaica and the Bahamas. Who doesn't want to do that? March 11th. Go to brownsfancruise.com now to get your tickets. Join us and 17-plus alumni. Folks like Eric Metcalf, the Top Dog, Hanford Dixon, just to name a few, Kevin Mack, Webster Slaughter, but 17 former Browns alumni to hang out with, do some fun stuff on the ship, some great beach excursions, wonderful time. And you know what? If you're in Cleveland, you want to get the heck out of there in March. It's cold. Go spend 5 days, on the warm waters of our Browns legends. So go out to brownsfancruise.com to get your tickets now.
Absolutely. Dustin, obviously we are heading into Victory Monday tomorrow, Victory Week, and we know that lasts all the way up until kickoff. There you go. All the way up until kickoff of the next game. So I hope everybody here has a great Victory Week. Let it set the tone for your week. Have a good one. Dustin, any closing thoughts as we wrap up on a beautiful Sunday evening?
Well, more importantly, stay safe. I hear the rain is turning to lake effect snows overnight in Cleveland. So stay safe, stay healthy. And Browns, enjoy that Victory Monday because it feels so much better after a Browns win in Cleveland.
Yeah, it certainly does. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, Browns fans,